It's been interesting to see the different responses to the $355 million fraud decision that Trump is going to have to pay and his businesses. And I want to check in on now how Alina Habba, Donald Trump's attorney, responded to this. First on Fox News, then Newsmax. And I guess to quickly summarize, and I'm still joined by Aaron Parnas, so I'll bring him in just a second to discuss this. But she's not taking it well. That's putting it very lightly. And she has some tough talk, we'll say, for Letitia James, for any of those who dare to try to hold Donald Trump accountable. And you'll see what I mean in this clip. Before bringing in Aaron, let me play this first moment for you.
I think the biggest message I can give the American people tonight is that he's not going to get away with it. Letitia James is not going to get away with it. The Biden administration is not going to get away with it. There is a point, and I want to say something different than I normally do. We have the order now. I'm free to speak. And let me just say, as somebody who sat there in the trial, Sean, and I'm so happy you invited me on to say this, they will not get away with it. We will come at them. We will come hard, and we will literally fight until the truth comes out. There was nothing wrong.
So obviously, given the track record, Aaron, of MAGA and the followers of Trump, how they take his words, how they take his allies' words, I don't love literally fight being the language she chose to use there, and saying that the response to Trump being held accountable in court for fraud he engaged in is literally fighting, as she said.
Yeah.
But I guess go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I agree. We saw what happened when you say, quote, literally fight on January 6, 2021. They literally fought then.
Right. And so then I guess separate from the dangerous nature of that rhetoric, I'm sure she would deny that's what she's encouraging. What is it? Is there any legal meaning to coming from his legal spokesperson? We won't let them get away with it. By what mechanisms can they stop Letitia James from quote unquote getting away with Trump having to pay his $355 million amount?
Well, there's really only one, and that's to appeal, but there are really no viable appellate issues here. I mean, I think at the end of the day, this kind of encapsulates Alina Habba's role in Trump world perfectly. One day she's acting as Trump's attorney in the courtroom. The next day she's acting as Trump's legal spokesperson on air. And in a lot of ways, the roles blend because you really see the spokesperson come out in front of a jury and not an attorney by definition. So I think we saw them fight tooth and nail and respond back to what they claim is a witch hunt down in Palm Beach when Alina Habba led the charge in filing a massive lawsuit against Hillary Clinton, against a number of defendants, a number of Democrats alleging interference with the 2016 election. And that case was quickly dismissed by a federal judge. And Alina Habba was on the hook for $1 million in sanctions because of frivolous claims that she brought on behalf of Donald Trump. So what you may see is Alina Habba filing a lawsuit against New York Attorney General Letitia James, but you'll likely see the outcome being the same as you saw in Florida, with Alina Habba potentially sanctioned, with Donald Trump losing again, and ultimately being forced to pay the several $100 million judgment after an appellate court affirms it. He also will be banned from being in the industry, from being a director or an officer of a company. Ultimately, this was just bluster from Alina Habba because remember, even if, for example, Trump becomes president or when he was president, there's nothing that would prevent him from paying a state law judgment. He can't pardon himself in state court.
Right. So maybe pursuing the making them pay that she wants to pursue, or not letting them get away with it, or quote, we will come at them, maybe that actually would end poorly for Alina Habba and Trump. One of the things that we've talked about in the past, Aaron, that is so stark here and just with all of Alina Habba's presence in politics and in court is she really is the perfect lawyer for Trump while simultaneously being the worst lawyer for Trump. So this type of language, Trump, he was watching Fox News and he was eating it up, loves it. Yes, we're not going to let them get away with it. Not really processing that. That doesn't mean a whole lot in his legal future getting any better. But then that's what makes him like someone like Alina Habba as a lawyer. Then we see how that turns out where it matters in court for him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think that really kind of, like I said earlier, it really encapsulates the point that Alina Habba, her true role isn't really to play attorney, it's to play spokesperson inside the courtroom and outside the courtroom. Everything that she says in front of a judge in the courtroom goes on a Truth Social post by Donald Trump later on. It also appears on Newsmax or OAN or Fox News or any of these right-wing cable shows where she can then go on and she can defend her client, or rather, I call him a client, but it's really defend her boss in front of national TV because her boss is running for political office. Your average criminal defendant, your average civil defendant is not running for political office. And therefore, they don't need to hire someone who acts as a spokesperson. They need to hire someone who can help them win a case in court. But it really doesn't seem like Donald Trump cares about winning or losing, even if it'll bankrupt him. So ultimately, not great for him to have Habba representing him. But I think that's what he wants at the end of the day.
Right. Then I think I mentioned that we have a second clip, so I want to make sure to play it. Here's more from Alina Habba on Newsmax.
All right, now let's bring in legal spokeswoman for Donald Trump, Alina Habba. Alina, really good having you on. Thank you for rushing to a camera on this momentous day, $365 million. It's insane. Your reaction?
That's a loaded question, Eric. I mean, my reaction is that this is more of the same. We've seen it. It's coming from the top. And when I say the top, I don't mean Miss James. I think that this is complete election interference at its finest. We've seen, how many times do I have to be here and say the same thing? He's the leading candidate for the Republican Party. He is the leading candidate for president, period. And that is why we are doing this. We are sitting here getting disgorged of profits for doing absolutely nothing wrong. His statements of financial conditions were undervalued.
Here's what really frightens me about this. So we heard her in the last clip saying, literally fight to stop, and then this is not her wording, but accountability when it comes to Trump. Then here, this whole narrative is already being built months out from the election, that election interference is taking place and they're trying to steal this election from Trump. We won't let them get away with it. And as we already noted, we saw how that turned out last time. And he wasn't pushing the idea that the 2020 election was going to be stolen this far out from the election. He was doing it before the election. But this is, again, months before the election is going to take place, and already Trump constantly is saying, we're so ahead in the polls that the only way we can lose is if they cheat. And then here Alina Habba is saying election interference. There's already going to be so much justification built up in the heads of MAGA to believe the election was stolen with zero evidence if Biden indeed prevails, Aaron.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a systematic effort kind of to lay the groundwork for an ultimate loss. I think that Donald Trump's team knows that his message is not popular amongst the American public, so that they have to lie and cheat in their own way to win. I think Donald Trump has been doing this ever since the moment he lost in 2020, kind of like you said, Luke. I think he knew that he was going to run for office again. He doesn't really care about all the PR that's coming from these legal cases. And instead, he's using it to his benefit by saying that this is a deep state witch hunt where the Biden administration and state officials, state Democratic officials, are coming after him. He's laying the groundwork for what will ultimately be an election night loss, where he will say, I lost because they persecuted me and prosecuted me simply because I'm a MAGA Republican. And he will rile up his supporters again. He will get them out on the streets, and it's going to be very dangerous for our country. So this has to be really stopped ahead of time. And the way to stop it is by preventing further delay in a lot of these cases. We know that when Donald Trump, if Donald Trump is convicted of a federal or state crime, his popularity in the polls drops tremendously. And we're going to have an opportunity to possibly see a conviction in the next couple months in New York and then likely in DC over the summer. So a lot of legal troubles are coming for Trump, but it's important not to forget why he's doing all of this and why he's making the arguments he's making. At the end of the day, it's only to benefit him, not the American people.
Well said. Where can people find you, Aaron?
On all my social media platforms, at Aaron Parnas.